Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you today about something we've all dealt with at some point in our lives. When a man is always on your mind, but never calls, this is what it means. When someone stays on your mind constantly, but makes no effort to reach out, it creates an emotional imbalance that many people mistake for fate, chemistry, or some deeper connection. In reality, that imbalance often reveals more about our own hopes and unmet emotional needs than it does about the other person. When your thoughts are full of someone who doesn't call, what you're really experiencing is a one-sided emotional investment. Your mind is giving them space, attention, and significance, while their actions are giving you silence. And silence is not neutral. Silence is communication. It tells you exactly where you stand, even if you don't want to hear it. We fill in the silence with excuses. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he lost his phone. Maybe he's not good at communicating. Maybe he's thinking about you too, but doesn't know what to say. But the truth is that effort is one of the simplest indicators of genuine interest. And someone who values you does not leave you confused, anxious, or waiting. When a person wants to connect, they find a way. They call on their lunch break. They message you before bed. They send a quick text saying they're thinking of you. Consistency doesn't require perfect circumstances. It requires intention. When you're doing all the emotional labor, wondering, hoping, imagining future conversations, replaying past moments, you're carrying a connection that the other person isn't participating in. That imbalance can make you feel restless, insecure, even question your worth. Not because you aren't deserving of effort, but because you're giving someone emotional space they have not earned. And the danger lies in how easily the mind can turn your feelings into stories. You start creating potential where there is no real demonstration. You attach meaning to little things. You amplify the rare moments he did show attention and ignore the long stretches when he didn't. This emotional imbalance can also stem from craving validation. When someone doesn't call, the mind becomes obsessed with the missing piece, like scratching at a locked door, because you want to know why it won't open. But the locked door is the answer. If someone wanted to let you in, you wouldn't be standing outside knocking. You deserve clarity, but clarity doesn't come from wondering what he feels. It comes from observing what he does. A man who is genuinely interested will provide reassurance through action, not confusion through absence. Thinking about someone often is not the problem. The problem is believing that your thoughts reflect the truth of the situation. They don't. They only reflect your desire. When a man is always on your mind, but never calls, it's a sign that your heart and your reality are not aligned. And until you acknowledge that imbalance, you will continue giving energy to a fantasy rather than responding to the facts in front of you. Interest is something people express not through promises, not through potential, and not through the stories they tell, but through consistent effort. When someone is on your mind constantly, yet makes no attempt to reach out, it becomes important to understand the message behind their silence. We often give people credit for emotions they have never expressed. We imagine feelings they haven't shown. We assign depth to a connection that has only been experienced in our own imagination. But genuine interest doesn't hide. It doesn't go days or weeks without a word. It doesn't leave you confused, unsure, or second, guessing your worth. Real interest comes with initiative, communication, and clarity. Silence is not the absence of interest. It is a form of communication all by itself, and often it speaks louder than any attractive words or warm memories. When a man is interested, he moves, he reaches out, he checks in, he shows concern, he asks how you're doing, he looks for opportunities to talk, to connect, to understand you. When he's not calling, not texting, not showing up, he's revealing his level of investment. People put effort into the things that matter to them. We all do it. We make time for what we value. We prioritize what we care about. If a man can scroll his phone, laugh at memes, hang out with his friends, go to work, watch TV, and live his life without ever thinking to reach out to you, it means that you are not part of his priority list. Even if you are part of his mental list occasionally, that's a difficult truth to swallow, especially when your heart wants something different. You may tell yourself that he's busy, overwhelmed, or dealing with life. And yes, life happens to everyone. But even in life's busiest moments, interest shows itself. A person who cares will send a small message. A person who wants to maintain a connection will not ghost you or give you emotional crumbs. He will not allow silence to speak for him. The mind has a way of romanticizing someone who is inconsistent. You remember the compliments, the chemistry, the eye contact, the laughter. And those moments can feel powerful, but they are moments, not maintenance. Moments are easy. Anyone can create a spark. It's consistency that shows commitment, maturity, and real intention. When someone stays silent, that silence is telling you everything you need to know about their priorities. They may enjoy the idea of you. They may like the attention. They may appreciate the feeling of being wanted. But liking the idea of someone is not the same as putting in effort to keep them. Silence shows you whether he sees you as convenience or commitment. And when you're the only one initiating, wondering, waiting, and thinking, you're holding up a connection that he's not helping to carry. That imbalance can wear you down emotionally because it forces you to give energy without receiving any in return. The truth is simple interest is proven through action, and silence is action too. It is a clear signal telling you that you deserve more than words, more than potential, and more than the hope that something will change. Silence tells you that his interest ends where effort begins. People make time for what matters to them, and that simple truth comes even clearer when someone's actions are inconsistent. When a man is always on your mind but never calls, it's easy to get caught up in wondering what he's thinking or why he hasn't reached out. But instead of analyzing his silence, the real answer lies in observing his consistency or lack of it. Consistency is one of the clearest indicators of someone's true intentions because it shows what they choose to prioritize day after day. Not just world has not rare moments when they feel like giving attention. Anyone can show interest once in a while. Anyone can send a good morning text when the mood strikes or make you feel special during one conversation. But those isolated moments are not commitment. They are impulses. Consistency requires discipline, intention, and genuine care. When someone values you, they don't allow days or weeks to pass without checking in. They don't let communication fade into thin air. They don't treat you like an afterthought because, to them, you are part of their life, not a passing distraction. It's important to notice the difference between effort and convenience. A man who is consistent puts in effort even when it's not convenient. He doesn't disappear because he had a long day, because he got distracted, or because something else caught his attention. He understands that maintaining a connection requires presence, not sporadic appearances. Inconsistent behavior, on the other hand, reveals a completely different intention. It shows that he's only engaging when he feels like it, when he's bored, or when he wants a little emotional comfort. That isn't connection. That's casual interest. But because it comes in waves, it can trick you into believing there's something deeper. You might hold on to the moments when he did show up, convincing yourself that those moments represent who he really is. The truth is that the real version of someone is the one they show you consistently, not the one they show you occasionally. If he wanted to call, he would. If he wanted to build something meaningful, you wouldn't have to wonder. Consistency eliminates confusion. Inconsistency creates it. And confusion is a sign that someone's words and actions don't match. When a man is serious about you, he removes confusion. He doesn't leave you guessing. He doesn't make you feel uncertain or insecure. He communicates clearly through his presence. Pay attention that consistency protects you from giving your time to someone who is only half invested. It reminds you that you deserve a connection that feels stable, not chaotic. It teaches you that effort isn't something you should have to beg for or hope for. It should come naturally from someone who truly wants to be in your life. When someone shows you who they are, consistently believe them. And when someone's inconsistency leaves you feeling unseen or unimportant, that is also the truth revealing itself. One of the biggest traps people fall into when someone is always on their mind but never reaches out is the tendency to romanticize potential instead of accepting reality. The mind begins to build stories, weaving together tiny gestures and rare moments into something that feels far more meaningful than what actually exists. When you're emotionally invested, you start imagining what he could be, how he might change, or what the connection might grow into. But potential is a dangerous illusion because it's built on hope rather than action. It keeps you holding on to what you wish he would do instead of looking at what he's actually doing. And most of the time, what he's doing is very little or nothing at all. When someone is not calling, not showing effort, not initiating, and not consistent, that's not potential. That's avoidance dressed up as possibility. Your own emotions fill in the gaps. He leaves empty, and the heart becomes attached to what your mind created, not to what he has proven. Actions are the real truth. Tell us in any relationship or connection. Words can be charming, chemistry can be strong, and memories can feel powerful, but actions are the only reliable measure of genuine interest. When you focus on potential, you allow the smallest gestures to carry too much weight. You start interpreting simple politeness as affection, friendliness as attraction, and minimal effort as something promising. But when someone cares, they don't leave you waiting, wondering or questioning your worth. They show up with consistency, communication, and presence. Romanticizing potential makes you overlook these facts. You excuse silence by calling it shyness. You justify inconsistency by blaming circumstances. You convince yourself that he's thinking about you even when there's no evidence of effort on his part. You hold on to the idea that he will eventually realize what he has and start acting differently. But change doesn't come from wishing, it comes from intention. If he hasn't shown consistent interest already, there's no guarantee he ever will. Paying attention to actions instead of potential empowers you to see the situation clearly. It allows you to step back from the fantasy and evaluate the reality. The reality is that someone who is truly interested does not let silence do the talking for him. He does not make you feel forgotten, confused, or unsure. He invests time, energy, and communication because maintaining the connection matters to him. When you keep glorifying potential, you end up giving someone credit they haven't earned, devotion they haven't reciprocated, and emotional energy they haven't valued. Meanwhile, you're left waiting for someone who isn't coming, hoping for a version of him that may never exist. Focusing on actions protects your heart. It keeps you grounded in what is real rather than what is imagined. It reminds you that you deserve someone who is fully present, not someone who only shows occasional sparks, but then disappears. Potential can be comforting because it feels full of possibilities, but it's also dangerous because it keeps you emotionally tied to someone who has shown through their behavior that they are not choosing you. By looking at actions, you free yourself from holding on to hope that hurts you. Potential may look beautiful, but it cannot build a relationship. Only consistent, intentional action can. Protecting your emotional energy begins with understanding that your heart, your time, and your peace are valuable, and not everyone deserves access to them. When a man is always on your mind, but never calls, you might find yourself pouring mental and emotional energy into someone who gives you nothing to work with. That imbalance slowly drains you. You start questioning yourself, doubting your worth, and wondering why he hasn't reached out. But the truth is, your emotion energy is not meant to be an open resource for anyone who happens to cross your thoughts. It is something that must be guarded with intention. Setting standards and boundaries becomes essential when your feelings are invested but his actions are absent. Standards are not demands. They are reflections of what you know you deserve. A standard might be consistent communication, effort, honesty, or emotional presence. Boundaries, on the other hand, protect you from accepting anything less than those standards. Without them, you end up giving unlimited emotional access to someone who isn't offering anything in return. You replay conversations, reanalyze moments, and internalize his silence as a sign that you must be patient or understanding. But patience without reciprocity becomes self-neglect. Understanding without limits becomes self-sacrifice. When you protect your emotional energy, you stop tolerating mixed signals, long periods of silence, and emotional crumbs. You stop allowing someone to occupy space in your mind simply because your heart is attached. Protecting your emotional energy means stepping back and asking yourself whether this connection is bringing you peace or stealing it. It means recognizing that your feelings alone are not enough to sustain anything meaningful. There has to be effort. There has to be reciprocity. There has to be balance. Boundaries help you avoid situations where you fall for someone's potential, their charm, or the version of them you've created in your imagination. They help you say, if you're not calling, I'm not chasing. If you're not investing, I'm not waiting. If you're not showing up, I'm not holding space. This isn't cold-hearted or harsh. It's self-respect. It's choosing yourself even when your emotions want to choose him. There's acknowledging that your worth is not determined by how much attention someone gives you, but by how much you value yourself. Protecting your emotional energy also means becoming aware of how much mental real estate you're giving someone who isn't giving you their time. Thinking about him all day, replaying old messages, hoping he'll call. These patterns drain you without you even realizing it. They distract you from your goals, your joy, and opportunities to connect with people who would gladly give you the consistency you crave. When you put boundaries in place and uphold your standards, you stop allowing emotional exhaustion to disguise itself as devotion. You stop accepting the bare minimum. You stop mistaking silence for something mysterious or meaningful. Instead, you recognize it as a message. By protecting your emotional energy, you choose clarity over confusion, self-worth over waiting, and peace over emotional chaos. Waiting for someone who doesn't call creates an emotional pause in your life, a silent space where you hold onto hope for a message that never comes. That waiting, those quiet moments spent staring at your phone, checking for notifications, rereading old conversations, keeps you emotionally tied to someone who isn't choosing you. When you spend your time waiting, you unintentionally close the door on opportunities with people who actually would show up, match your effort, and make you feel valued. It's not that you don't deserve love. It's that your emotional focus is locked onto someone who is not offering you any. And when your heart is occupied by someone absent, there's no room for someone present. The danger of waiting lies in how subtly it begins. You tell yourself it's just one day of silence, then a few more. You rationalize his lack of communication by thinking he's busy or dealing with life. You reassure yourself that when he does call, it'll mean something, and the connection will feel even stronger. But waiting turns into a habit. You start living in anticipation instead of reality. You build expectations around a person who hasn't shown you consistency. And while you're waiting for him to show interest, someone who genuinely is passing by unnoticed because your emotional energy is tied up in someone who isn't showing effort. When you hold on to someone who doesn't call, you're holding onto a version of love that is unbalanced. Healthy love is not built on silence, uncertainty, or one-sided hope. It is built on mutual investment, communication, and availability. But when you wait for someone inconsistent, you unintentionally teach yourself that effort is optional, that your feelings don't need to be reciprocated, and that love requires patience even when you receive nothing in return. And that belief slowly shapes your self-worth. You begin to feel grateful for the bare minimum. You start celebrating small gestures because you've been starved for consistency. You tell yourself that any form of attention is a step in the right direction, even when it's just breadcrumbs. What you don't realize while waiting is that you are delaying your own happiness. You are putting your heart on pause for someone who isn't moving. You are giving your love to someone who is not giving you clarity. And in doing so, you're blocking the path for someone who would walk toward you without hesitation. Someone who would call without you having to hope. Someone who would make you feel chosen rather than confused. Someone who would show up not because you waited, but because they wanted to. The moment you stop waiting is the moment you start healing. You begin to reclaim your emotional space. You begin to recognize that the right person doesn't leave you wondering. You begin to understand that love shouldn't feel like waiting for permission. And as you let go of the man who never calls, you make space for the man who will. You open up room for someone who values communication, who values presence, and who values you. Because the truth is simple. The person who is meant for you will not require waiting. He will meet you, match you, and move forward with you. And letting go of the one who doesn't is how you make room for the one who will.